When you see any animes with the harem tag in it, most of the time people would associate it with the typical trashy, mindless, ecchi fanservice type shows, with the same horny protagonist that you would find in most harem animes. Now, I know that not all harem animes are like that, and there are the occasional wholesome harem animes like Niseko or On High School Host Club, and even some animes without the harem tag in it like My Next Life as a Villainess or Monogatari. Because if you break it down, a good harem anime is able to showcase amazing character-driven plots and offer viewers the chance to understand the different sides of the protagonist through the different love interests of the show. We see how each individual love interests are able to offer the protagonist something the others don't, and help fulfill a certain desire or goal of the protagonist. Of course, a lot of harem animes don't really care about these things and rather just focus on the raunchy, wish-fulfilling elements or the typical accidental perverted moments that you would associate whenever you think of harem animes. But wholesome harem animes like Gotoubun no Hanayome or the Quintessential Quintuplets will definitely provide a remedy to change your perception of the genre and prove to you that not all harem animes are raunchy fanservice type shows, as we'll see in today's anime review.
夢を見ていた。
Now, being a wholesome harem anime that doesn't rely on the typical cliche of the genre, it's obvious that it should have something else to keep viewers satisfied, which Quintessential Quintuplets definitely has. The story is fairly straightforward as we follow Futaro Uesugi, a solitary honor student who has to help his family pay off his father's debt, and it seems like his prayers were answered when he gets offered a job tutoring the daughters of a wealthy man. However, he soon finds out that his job is much more complicated than he thought, because he doesn't just have to tutor a single daughter, but instead identical quintuplets named Ichika, Nino, Miku, Yotsuba, and Itsuki, whose personality couldn't be any more different. Of course, they aren't completely different and do have something in common besides identical faces. They really hate studying and also hate their new tutor Futaro, except for maybe Yotsuba. The story and style is definitely different than the conventional harem, giving the characters actual reasons to meet and have similar goals they can work towards instead of the usual unlikely chance encounters or the accidental perverted scene one would normally find in most harem animes. And what's more, we see the show as a flashback from Futaro's wedding day where we are teased about the identity of the future bride-to-be in a How I Met Your Mother-like way, and by doing so we become invested in the current story of seeing how Futaro is able to help the sisters graduate and experiencing the dynamic of their relationships together as well, while also looking forward to the eventual reveal of the identity of the bride-to-be. But being a harem romantic comedy, it's undoubtedly going to be a more character-driven show, with it utilizing the large cast of characters to show real character growth between one another and how they work towards their own individual goals without the story becoming boring or repetitive. Now, the show does make a lot of effort to make you care about each of the sisters, with all of them having their own unique personalities and looks, because in the anime they actually made it easier to distinguish the sisters with their different hair colors compared to the manga. And because the sisters all vary in terms of their personalities, they somewhat adhere to the standard waifu archetypes, but isn't completely defined by them. Starting with Itsuki, she has a deep dislike for Futaro after she was rudely rejected by him when she offered him to become her tutor. Even from day one, they are at odds with each other, but as time progresses, she does slowly learn to tolerate him more. She's a borderline tsundere and the queen of gluttony. She acts serious and has motherly qualities, but she does occasionally break down and weep her sorrows to Futaro. Then we have Miku, the quiet kudere type that showed the least amount of emotions at the beginning but slowly begins to appreciate Futaro after understanding each other more, and I think she's the most loyal one to him. She does begin to express herself and speak up a lot more later on, although her shyness does occasionally stop her from expressing those emotions. Also, she's terrible at cooking and my personal favorite out of the sisters because of how adorable she can be sometimes. On the other hand, we have the cheerful and athletic Yotsuba who can't say no to anyone because of her selfless personality. She also has a very playful behavior, and despite being perhaps the least intelligent among the sisters, she is the most enthusiastic about trying to study and can easily fit with any crowd and has little trouble in making friends. Now, this is quite different as compared to Nino, the second sister who can be a bit aggressive towards outsiders, especially Futaro, but in fact she is just overprotective and cares a lot for her sisters. She can be annoying at first, and I was also on the hate bandwagon for her, but at least she stopped acting like a brat and learned to accept Futaro despite being the one that was against him the longest. Last but certainly not least, Ichika is the older sister with a laid-back but sometimes mature personality. Despite how she behaves, she has big ambitions that she's trying to work towards, and out of everyone else, she is probably the most expressive of her feelings. Yet she can be playful, and often we see her teasing Futaro with sexual-related jokes and sometimes acting as the fan service bait of the show. And from what I experienced with the show, they are all amazing characters with their own unique personalities and goals, along with a good balance of strengths and flaws, and what's more, they also have amazing chemistry with one another. Because unlike most harem animes where the girls are individuals who only live adjacent to one another whose only similarity is to get with the protagonist, the Nakano sisters are actual family that is connected to one another and doesn't just have Futaro as their common interest. They have a strong familiar bond, so whenever we see any sibling rivalries or conflicts, it still feels connected to the overall group and story, while each of them help to further their relationship with Futaro. Now, as for Futaro, I admit he's a pretty plain protagonist, but he also isn't your stereotypical boring-ass, dumb and horny harem protagonist. He has some great qualities as a character. He's diligent, hardworking, and a book-smart kind of guy. But he does have flaws like being overly serious, stingy, abrasive, and a socially inept person who is indifferent to anything except his studies and his finances, which is also a big reason why he was at odds with the Nakano sisters at the beginning of the series. But as the series progresses, he learns to grow as a person to better understand them on a personal level and tries his best to help all the sisters, be it studying or anything else. He learns to understand their weaknesses and recognizes their differences as individuals. And it's this contrast between Futaro and the Nakano sisters that help create a refreshing chemistry between the cast and keeps the whole crazy story spinning, making the show always entertaining to watch. It's obvious the author put a lot of thought into the character writing, taking advantage of the unique story structure of the harem genre, but of course it wouldn't be possible without its amazing cast of voice actors. Futaro is played by none other than Yoshisugu Matsuoka, while our beloved Nakano sisters are played by Inori Minase as Itsuki, Miku Ito as Miku, Ayane Sakura as Yotsuba, Ayana Taketatsu as Nino, and Kana Hanazawa as Ichika. The voice acting was definitely amazing, and they managed to perfectly portray their respective characters and make them feel realistic. But sadly, the same can be said about the animation, because at best I would consider it to be average, with it at least having a colourful art style, especially for the character design of the Nakano sisters, and some beautiful short composition of characters as well. Now, at its worst, the character models sometimes look outright bad, or even some animations looking very stiff and unnatural. However, I did like how the sisters all have their own unique looks, like Miku's headphones, Ichika's short hair, Nino's butterfly ribbon, Itsuki's star pins, or Yotsuba's green ribbon despite having identical faces. And I personally can still accept the animation quality because of the amazing writing and voice acting, but I can understand some people being unable to sit through it. So if that's the case, then I would actually recommend reading the manga because it still retains the amazing writing with the addition of really expressive, crisp and clean artwork and just an overall well-made manga. I actually got into reading the manga because I recently just finished watching season 1 and season 2 of the anime, and I became addicted to the story and I couldn't wait to find out what happened next, which undoubtedly led me to finish the entire manga as well. And I'm not saying that the anime isn't worth watching. In fact, season 2 improved a lot of things that season 1 lacked, but if you want a more complete experience of the Quintessential Quintuplets, I would recommend watching the anime first and then reading the manga. Now, since I mentioned season 2, I guess I could just quickly go over some of the things season 2 improved on because it actually takes all the good things about season 1 and build on it, so I think I could just go over everything right now. And the biggest improvement of season 2 is definitely the overall animation. Everything is much smoother and cleaner, and even the art style had a significant upgrade while still maintaining the strength of the season 1 animations. And of course, I noticed a lot of people complaining about how the studio removed the tenderness and juiciness of the thighs of the Nakano sisters, which I couldn't care less, and come on guys, do you guys really want to go to horny jail so badly? Now, I wouldn't call this an improvement, but it does show the story progression and the character development for our main cast of characters. In season 1, everything was more chaotic and hectic because the Nakano sisters were hesitant towards Futaro and kept going against him, but in season 2, things finally settled down a bit, and we see their dynamic with each other become more defined and mature. There's also a drastic change in the personality of the Nakano sisters as well. Ichika went from the mature, loving older sister into a selfish person who isn't afraid to play dirty when it comes to love or hurting the ones closest to her. Then we have Nino, who fought against Futaro the longest but ended up being the first one to truly show her love honestly without any hidden intentions. Next, we have the opposite, which is Miku. She's still self-conscious about her feelings towards Futaro, but she now learned to care for others and tries her hardest to make Futaro see her differently. Now Yotsuba is pretty much still the same cheerful girl, but deep down we can see that she isn't really happy about it, and it's clear that she is trying to change thanks to Futaro. Finally, we have Itsuki, who definitely became the most capable and independent. She is trying her best to keep her sisters together while wanting to become the best version of herself. Now, there isn't much to say about the voice acting because it's still superb, but I definitely enjoyed the season 2 opening more. It just sounded catchier and felt like a better suit for the tone the show is going for. Overall, the Quintessential Quintuplets is a really fun, light-hearted, sweet, and heartwarming romantic comedy that just so happens to have the harem tag in it. It will definitely be able to change your perception of the genre and attract your attention than most harem dumpster fire that you would see in the past thanks to its unique premise, both in terms of romantic comedy and the harem genre, and not to mention the strong story writing that emphasizes on character dynamic and how characters grow, and of course the well-written and colorful characters brought to life by the masterful performances from the actors. I highly recommend watching season 1 and 2 right now and reading the manga afterwards to get the best experience for the series. Now before I end this, the all-important question, which of the Nakano sisters is your pick for best girl? Personally, I'm on Team Miku, but I think Nino is a strong contender for best girl as well. So be sure to leave your picks in the comment section down below, and while you're at it, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Quintessential Quintuplets as well. And hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to give the video a like or subscribing to the channel for more anime content in the future. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.